He kicked his own mother out of the house, with nothing but the clothes on her back. But what she was hiding in her old shoe, it shattered him. Watch till the end. This story will break your heart. Before we dive in, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you love stories that touch the heart. Marcus was a self-made man, or at least that's what he told himself. Big house, fancy car, expensive watch ticking loud with pride. His mother, Clara, stood on the porch of his mansion, her shoulders slouched under a worn-out cardigan. Her shoes were cracked at the edges, the soles almost falling apart. But she didn't care. She had come to see her son. "I just wanted to drop off your favorite soup," she said, holding a plastic bag in her hand. "The one you liked as a boy." Marcus didn't even look at her. He barely opened the door. "I told you, Mom, don't just show up. My fiancé's family is visiting." "What are you doing here like this?" She looked down. "I thought you might be hungry." His voice rose. "I'm not hungry. I'm embarrassed." Then with a sharp breath, he said what he'd been holding back for years. "You raised me in poverty. Do you think I want my future in-laws seeing you at my door like a beggar? You didn't give me anything." There was silence. Clara's hands trembled, but she said nothing. She didn't fight back. Instead, she simply nodded, turned around, and walked slowly down the steps. She never said a word about the dollar bill hidden in her shoe. She didn't mention that it was the only dollar she'd kept since the day he was born, the one someone gave her at the hospital to buy milk for baby Marcus. She used to call it their lucky dollar. She never spent it, not even when she had to skip meals, just so he could eat. The door shut behind Clara with a cold finality. Marcus stood in the quiet hallway, adjusting the collar of his designer shirt like nothing had happened. He didn't realize his fiancée, Amanda, had overheard the whole thing from the top of the stairs. "She's your mom," Amanda said gently, her voice uncertain. "Wasn't that a little harsh?" Marcus scoffed. "She shows up unannounced, in those shoes, with that bag. You don't know her like I do." Amanda didn't answer, but in that moment, something inside her shifted. Meanwhile, Clara walked slowly down the street, every step in her worn shoes sending a dull ache through her feet. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. She just kept walking, one hand clutching the side of her shoe, where the folded dollar bill pressed softly against her heel. That little piece of paper had walked through life with her. She had once framed it above her tiny kitchen sink in the projects, whispering, "This is the start of something better." When Marcus got into college, she took the dollar down, kissed it, and wrapped it in tissue paper, hiding it inside her shoe. "For good luck," she told herself. She never spent it, not when the lights were cut, not when she skipped medication, not even when she went hungry for 2 days so Marcus could eat before exams. And now he'd thrown her away like she never mattered. She didn't know where to go. Her rented room had been taken over by new tenants after she couldn't make rent the past 2 months. She had spent her last actual cash buying ingredients to make his favorite soup, the one he just slammed the door on. Still, she walked with grace, not out of pride, but out of love. Back at the mansion, Marcus laughed with Amanda's family that evening. Wine flowed, laughter echoed. Clara's name was never mentioned. But that night, while tossing in his expensive silk sheets, Marcus couldn't sleep, not because of guilt, but because of a sound he didn't even realize he'd memorized, the shuffle of his mother's shoes on pavement. He remembered it from childhood, when she came home after cleaning office buildings until midnight, and still made him hot tea. He pushed the thought away. He didn't know it yet, but that memory, that sound, would soon come back to haunt him. And it would begin with a phone call from a homeless shelter the next morning. Marcus didn't answer the unknown number the first time it rang. He was busy reviewing some client emails, sipping a $6 coffee in his glass-walled office. Everything looked perfect. The skyline, the custom chair, the gold pen on his desk. Everything, except for the strange ache in his chest that hadn't gone away since last night. The phone rang again. This time he picked up, slightly annoyed. "Hello?" A calm voice spoke on the other end. A woman. "Hello, is this Mr. Marcus Lane?" "Yes, who's this?" "I'm calling from the St. Agnes shelter downtown. Your mother, Clara Lane. She listed you as her emergency contact. Marcus froze. He hadn't heard anyone say his mother's full name out loud in years. It echoed through the phone like a name from a dream. What happened? He asked, his voice suddenly dry. She collapsed outside our building. Likely exhaustion, possibly dehydration. We've taken her in, but she refused treatment at the hospital. Said she didn't want to trouble her son. Marcus didn't know what to say. She's resting now, the woman continued. She didn't have a phone, no ID, just your name, and a plastic bag of soup. That hit him like a brick. The soup. He stared out the window, his reflection staring back at him. A man in a $1,000 suit. A man who once said, "You didn't give me anything." Now she was lying in a shelter, with the soup she made for him still in her bag. Later that afternoon, Marcus drove downtown. He hadn't been in that part of the city in years. He passed buildings with peeling paint, children playing near puddles, and a church with a broken bell tower. His tires crunched gravel as he pulled up to the shelter. No cameras, no red carpet, just a quiet building with tired walls and a sign that read, "St. Agnes, all are welcome." He stepped inside. A kind-looking nurse guided him down a narrow hallway. The air smelled of soap and lentil soup. "She's in there," the nurse said softly, pointing to a small room with one cot. Marcus stepped inside and stopped. Clara was lying on her side, her face pale but peaceful. Her cardigan was folded beside her, and her shoes, those cracked, tired shoes, sat neatly at the foot of the cot. For the first time in years, he noticed how small she looked, how thin her hands were, how much gray had taken over her hair. She didn't see him yet. He slowly bent down and picked up one of her shoes. It was soft, worn thin from years of walking. And then something slipped out from inside it, a tiny folded square of paper, wrapped in tissue and taped shut. He gently peeled it open. Inside was a $1 bill, old and faded, with handwriting across it in black marker. "But for my Marcus. My lucky dollar. You gave this to me when you were 5. I told myself I'd never spend it, because it was the day you said, 'Don't worry, Mama, one day I'll take care of you.'" Marcus dropped to his knees. Right there on the cold shelter floor, he broke. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he clutched the note to his chest. The memory came flooding back, his little 5-year-old voice, handing her that dollar after finding it on the sidewalk. She had kept it all these years, through pain, through hunger, through loneliness. And he had told her, "You didn't give me anything." He wept into his hands, not for the dollar, but for every moment he didn't say thank you, for every time he tried to forget where he came from. Marcus was still kneeling when Clara stirred. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, adjusting to the dim light of the shelter room. She looked around, confused for a moment. Then her gaze landed on him. He was still on the floor, clutching the dollar and crying silently. "Marcus?" she whispered, her voice dry and faint. He looked up, eyes red, face crumpled. For a moment, neither of them moved. The silence felt heavy, thick with years of distance, pride, pain, and everything unspoken. Clara tried to sit up. What are you doing here?" Marcus stood slowly. His suit was wrinkled, his expensive watch catching the light, such a strange contrast against the metal cot and peeling paint of the shelter. "I came because they called me," he said softly. "They said you collapsed." She looked away. "I'm fine. I told them not to bother you." His voice cracked. "They did the right thing." Clara didn't answer. Marcus stepped forward and gently held up the dollar. "Why didn't you tell me you kept this?" Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to speak, but her lips trembled instead. "I said so many stupid things, Mom," Marcus continued, his voice shaking. "I told myself you didn't give me anything. But this..." He held up the faded bill. "This is everything." Clara shook her head, eyes full of emotion. "It was just $1. "No," he said firmly. "It was the dollar I gave you when I thought it would fix the world. And you kept it, while I forgot what really mattered." He pulled a chair close and sat beside her, gently taking her hand. Her fingers were rough and thin, worn by years of labor, yet somehow still warm. "I've been so ashamed of where I came from," Marcus confessed. "I buried it. Buried you. I thought becoming successful meant never looking back." She gave him a small, tired smile. "But roots don't disappear, son. You just stopped watering them. That line hit him like a punch. Clara looked out the window, her voice barely a whisper. I never needed your money, Marcus. I just wanted a seat at your table, even if it was at the far end. He covered his face, holding back a sob. I've been so wrong, he choked. Can you forgive me? She nodded slowly, a tear slipping down her cheek. You're my son. I forgave you long before you ever hurt me. For the first time in years, Marcus leaned in and hugged her, not out of guilt, not out of pity, but out of need. He held her like the boy who used to run into her arms after school, the boy who once believed a single dollar could change the world. And maybe, in some small way, it did. The next morning, Marcus didn't go to the office. He sat in his car outside the shelter, just staring at the dashboard for a long time, phone buzzing with emails, meeting alerts and missed calls from Amanda. But none of that felt important anymore. Instead, he walked back inside the shelter, holding a clean change of clothes, a bag of fresh groceries, and one more thing, a small envelope with $10,000 in cash. When Clara saw him, her eyes widened. Marcus, what are you doing back? I'm not leaving you here, he said. Not again. Clara blinked. But I don't want to be a burden. You were never a burden, he interrupted gently. I just refuse to carry my gratitude, but I'm ready now. She smiled weakly, her hand trembling as she touched the envelope. What's this? Just a little thank you, he said, for all the times you gave me everything and asked for nothing. Later that day, Marcus stood in front of his fiancée Amanda in their sleek apartment. She crossed her arms, confused. Wait, you brought your mom back to stay here? Marcus nodded. Yeah, just until she's okay. Maybe longer. Amanda raised an eyebrow. Marcus, I thought we agreed this wasn't the kind of life we wanted. You told me I was wrong, Marcus cut in. I lied to you, and to myself. My mom raised me with love, not luxury, and I threw her out like she didn't matter. He stepped closer, his tone calm but firm. If this life doesn't have room for her, then maybe I don't want this life. Amanda fell silent. A week later, Marcus broke off the engagement. Not because Amanda was cruel, but because she didn't understand the weight of what he'd rediscovered. He was done with shallow dinners and hollow pride, done pretending the past didn't shape him. Marcus moved Clara into a quiet two-bedroom apartment just outside the city. Nothing too fancy, just warm, peaceful, full of light. He even fixed up her old rocking chair, bought the same brand of tea she used to sip when he was a boy, and framed that lucky dollar, placing it right beside the entryway. And every time he saw it, he remembered that money doesn't measure wealth, love does. And sometimes, the smallest things, like a crumpled dollar in a mother's shoe, carry more value than $1 million deal ever could. 1 week after moving Clara into her new apartment, Marcus did something he hadn't done in nearly 15 years. He went back to the neighborhood he used to call home. He left the Rolls-Royce behind, swapped his designer suit for a hoodie and jeans, and walked the cracked sidewalks, barefoot for a moment just to remember what it felt like to grow up here. The air was different, dusty, thick with memories. The corner store still had the same faded red sign. Kids played tag in the narrow alleyway behind the old church. A man sold roasted corn near the curb, just like the vendor, who used to call Marcus Little Lion when he ran errands for his mother. He paused outside the old apartment building where he and Clara once lived. Unit 3B. The door was still broken, the mailbox still taped together, but something about it brought tears to his eyes. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't polished, but it was home once. Marcus walked down the block to the community center, a small building with chipped paint and a handmade sign that read, "Future starts here." Inside, he found Ms. Evelyn, the woman who ran after school. Programs for kids like him back in the day. She gasped when she saw him. Marcus Lane? Is that really you? He smiled shyly. Yeah, I've been away, but I wanted to come back. They sat for hours, talking, laughing, remembering. She told him how Clara used to walk 3 miles in the rain, just to volunteer at bake sales, even when she didn't have money for bus fare. And Marcus listened, really listened. At the end, he took out his checkbook. I want to fund this center, he said. Fix the roof, buy supplies, start a scholarship in my mom's name. She believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. Miss Evelyn held his hand and said, "Your mother's love built half this block. You're just finishing what she started." That night, Marcus returned home to Clara's apartment, tired but full. He found her asleep in the recliner, a soft blanket over her lap, and the television playing an old gospel hymn she loved. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "You didn't raise a millionaire, Mom. You raised a man." And from that day on, Marcus made it his mission to never forget where he came from, and to make sure his mother never felt forgotten again. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the doorway of his new office, not in a glass tower downtown, but in a small building he'd bought in his old neighborhood. The sign above read, "The Clara Foundation for Forgotten Mothers." Inside, women sat in circles, some sharing stories, some sipping tea, some simply resting in silence. Many had once been thrown out, just like Clara, but now they had a place to land. At the front desk, a photo hung proudly on the wall, Marcus as a little boy, sitting on his mother's lap, both laughing in a tiny kitchen, and just below it, a framed, faded $1 bill. It didn't need a plaque. Everyone who walked in knew what it meant. Clara still called it just a dollar, but Marcus knew the truth. That dollar had bought him something no fortune ever could: a second chance, a healed heart, and a mother's love, finally honored. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Click subscribe and turn on the bell, because every week we bring you stories that remind us of what really matters. And if you've ever been given a second chance, tell us in the comment section.